Hello, and thank you so much for being with me here today. My name is Michelle, and I'm with Olive and 2U Studios. We are a hand-dyed yarn company in Central Florida. I'm so happy that you've joined me today because today we're going to talk about mini skeins. Invariably, at this time of year, if you're in the yarn world at all, you know that the 12 days of Christmas, the 8 nights of Hanukkah calendars are out, as well as Christmas and Hanukkah Advents. And so everybody is getting these little tiny, beautiful mini skeins of joy. Wow, is that a bright color or what? All these gorgeous mini skeins. And invariably in our group, the Yarny Use, and among our customers, the question comes up, what do I do with all these mini skeins? Like they're everywhere. We have our Salinger Pop Club that goes out every single month. It's a subscription and it's a mini skein plus like a coordinating stitch marker. And so a lot of folks have a lot of minis, but I'm here to tell you this morning that mini skeins are one of the best things you can have in your stash. And the reason why is because they're incredibly flexible and versatile, and they can add pops of amazing color to all the things that you stitch, knit, crochet up. We're going to talk about that stitching part in just a little bit as well. So I hope you'll stick with me. I have a free download for you today that we're going to jump into in just a minute. You can actually access it by clicking the store tab down below, or clicking the button that says the Mini Skein Project Guide. We've put together some really kind of creative ideas. Well, to be fair, some of them are really creative and some of them are like things you might have already known about. But it's always good to be reminded about all the things that we can do with mini skeins. So thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already done so, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Just click the little subscription button and then the bell so that you get notifications. I'm typically here live every Saturday morning at 9:30 Eastern time. And then later on in the week, I do shop updates. And we'll get to some shop updates here shortly with some beautiful new yarn in our particular shop. But I want to talk about mini hanks. So they're everywhere, right? We can't resist picking up the minis. They're just so cute and delectable, and we want to take them home. And that's not a bad thing. I think a lot of times people end up feeling guilty for buying minis. I hope you're not one of those people. I don't feel guilty for the minis. But the reason we do sometimes is sometimes when we have a lot of yarn in our stash, we feel like, oh gosh, I should be using that. I should be knitting that. I should be crocheting that. I should do something with it. And there's nothing wrong, obviously, with using your yarn. We buy it for a purpose. We like to knit shawls or socks or sweaters and all the things. But I've said this before on previous podcasts, and I think it was Marley Bird that came up with it first where I read it. And she mentioned that yarn on its own can be appreciated as a work of art. And I think that's true, particularly of hand-dyed yarn, because someone put their heart and soul into dyeing this. And so it's basically an artisan product. It's something that a small business produced. And I think it's okay to admire it on the shelf for what it is. It's just a beautiful art piece, basically, an art installation, if you will, in your home. But I get that we want to use it as well. I'm the same way. I want to use it. I want to use it so I can give the item away or wear the item myself, and then I can buy more beautiful art pieces, right? That's the idea. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what to do with all the mini hanks. Like I said, the question invariably comes up at this time of year and at various times during the year. So I've created a handout for you. I've got it on my iPad here today. I've got it on my iPad for a really specific reason. Oops, I'm giving it too much away early on. The reason is you can absolutely print this out. It's completely free. You can click the shop tab down below, download it to your device, and you can print it out if you like to have paper that you can use and write on it. There are some places here we're going to get to in just a moment where you can absolutely write on it, take some notes, make some plans. But the reason that I have it in a PDF form as well is because there are clickable links here. I've got clickable links for pattern suggestions, information, all sorts of things. So it's definitely clickable for you. Now, I happen to use Apple products, and what I do with my PDFs is I upload them to the Apple Books app, and that way it works just like a book for me. I can swipe from page to page. So this is a 3-page PDF with information on it. And I kind of want to go through it. I'm hoping you'll download it. It's completely free, but I do kind of want to go through it to talk about some of the options that you have. And then I've got some show and tell today. Now, I'm going to make sure that the pattern links are down below in the show notes so you can snag these particular patterns if you want. But I want to start by saying that Ravelry and Pinterest are two really wonderful resources for patterns. So a lot of times when people ask me, what can I do with mini hanks? I'll just go to my Ravelry account. I'll do a search for mini skeins and it will pull up like several pages of possibilities. And then I just click and share that link with them. So easy peasy on my part, and they have all the patterns available to them. So you can absolutely do that as well. Or you can go to Pinterest and search the same way, search mini hanks or mini skeins and look that way. And you will get so many possibilities of things that you can do with mini skeins. So there's lots of possibilities out there, but I find for me, sometimes having too many possibilities results in like choice fatigue, right? So in the face of too many options, sometimes I won't make a choice at all because it's too much. So what I tried to do in this particular PDF is whittle it down for you a little bit so that you can think of things in terms of groupings, hopefully making it easier to make some selections. So the first grouping we're going to go through is one of the really obvious ones that I want to talk about. So shawls, cowls, socks all lend themselves to mini skeins, and even sweaters you can use mini skeins in. Now, a lot of patterns will call for pops of color. So you might have stripes, you might have color work, you might have some brioche. If it's not too large of a space, or maybe you can switch your hanks out, you can absolutely use your mini hanks in those sorts of patterns as well. But what I think is really neat are the Scrappy projects, or what we like to call, and this is a little further in the PDF, but what I like to call Franken projects, like Franken socks, Franken shawl. And all that means is that you have kind of cobbled together lots of different colorways out of your stash to create a really unique combination. And that makes it completely yours. Not that if you didn't do that, it wouldn't be completely yours, but it's your choice of colors, how you arrange them. Maybe you arrange them in a fade sort of arrangement, from darkest to lightest or lighter to darker, typically called a fade, where you fade one color into the next. That's one way to do it. Or perhaps you elect to do something like very discrete stripes up against each other. So maybe a purple up against a blue, up against a brown, so that you have very stark demarcations of color in a project. So those are some examples of things that you can do, absolutely. The other thing that you can do, backing up a little bit in the PDF, is that even a project that doesn't call for stripes or doesn't specifically call for color work, you can still incorporate those elements into your project. It doesn't have to be written in. You can decide to do stripes, or you can decide to do even a different stitch in a different color. If you've been listening and hearing about assigned pooling lately, that's kind of what that is. It just happens that in assigned pooling, it's in one hank. So you're going along for about 80% of a hank, you get to the last 20% and it's a stark change in color, and then you do a different stitch. But honestly, you could do something like that with mini skeins as well, so that you have those pops of color that really help to add more interest to the project that you're working on. So one of the really cool products that recently came out, and you've probably heard of it, are the Doodle decks from Pacific Knit Company. We carry them here in the shop. In fact, they're peeking through the gnomes behind me. The Doodle decks are an array of colorwork charts that let you mix and match motifs and elements to personalize your projects. What a perfect way to use mini skeins. So you can absolutely insert then into nearly any project a color work chart using the Doodle decks. Now the decks come in different themes, you might say. So there's like Valentine's, there's holiday, there's even one from Portland, there's one from Rhinebeck. There's the newest ones are the travel decks. So there's one from Dublin, there's one from Barcelona, one from Paris. So you can personalize your projects not only with a color work chart, but with specific colors you've chosen for that. The only thing you need to be careful of with the Doodle decks is you want to make sure that the stitch count in the project that you're working on will work within the Doodle deck color chart. And they're very specific. There's a whole brochure that tells you how to doodle. In fact, there's a new book out that tells you how to doodle with the Doodle decks. So you just want to make sure that your stitch count matches. You don't want to get all excited about the minis and start stitching away and then realize, oops, I'm a couple stitches off. That's not going to work. Even then, there might be ways to modify it. So again, as we talk today, I kind of want to think about the things that you can do to kind of springboard your own creativity into using the mini hanks, because that's really what it's all about. It's all about using your own creativity to make projects your own with the colors that you love, that you've loved before enough to buy and put in your stash. So Doodle decks are a great idea. We actually happen to carry those in the shop, and the link is in your PDF. Moving on, one area that I think is somewhat neglected in the stitching world, at least with knit and crochet, not so much with embroidery, and we're going to get to embroidery in a minute, but is the idea of home decor projects, right? So we've got little pumpkins at the Halloween time or during fall that you can stitch up. There are snowflake ornaments. There are, little Christmas tree ornaments, all sorts of ornaments that you can use. And I think very often we think, oh, I probably need to pull a full hank of yarn from my stash for that, but you don't. Often those little projects are just right for a 20-gram mini. And if they're not, you could put, a couple minis together to create something if you needed more yardage. Or maybe you don't need more yardage. These are each 93 yards. Maybe you don't need more yardage, but maybe you just want an array of colors. So you can have fun playing with the colors and you use portions of minis. They're not behaving very well. But you can use portions of minis then to create a palette that's just right for you in your home decor project. Another thing that people often don't think of that I've discovered are sachets. So you can knit or crochet these little bags, little sachets, and then fill them with dried lavender or other botanical elements. They make great gifts. They even make nice little things to tie on to the tops of packages at Christmas time or for birthdays or showers, anything like that. So little sachets. And again, in your mini skein project guide, you've got several links here: pumpkins, holiday ornaments, snowflakes, and then mug rugs. Coasters or mug rugs are another beautiful way to use mini skeins, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. What I'm hoping to do today again is to kind of help you get kind of your creative wheels turning a little bit so you can begin to think of your own ways to use mini hanks. There's so many uses for them. Okay. We are all pretty familiar with the idea of temperature blankets. So a lot of people embark on that as an annual project every year where they meticulously chart the temperatures in their area. They assign various colorways to various temperatures. So maybe blues for cooler temperatures and maybe reds or oranges for hotter temperatures. That's kind of the really kind of common stereotypical way to do it. But there are other kinds of blankets along the lines. There's temperature blankets are great. They're fantastic. And knitting or crocheting objects to sort of memorialize or even commemorate either a time in your life or an event in your life, I think is a really smart way to use yarn, because yarn is kind of emotional. We get emotionally attached to the colors. So temperature blankets are one way to do that. But have you ever thought about a mood blanket? So you can track your daily moods and do a little bit of stitching every day or maybe every week and memorialize that in a blanket. So you might use the stereotypical kind of blue color if you're feeling a little down or a little sad. You might use some fun reds or pinks or brighter colors if you were feeling particularly happy, and all the colors in between. There's actually a wonderful blog post out there, and I've linked it in your PDF that you can set up a mood blanket, which I think is a really neat thing to do. And then the other thing that I think is great, that's also another variation on this theme, is actually kind of a life milestone blanket. Now, this takes a little more thought, maybe, because colors don't necessarily correspond directly with milestones in our life, but a little imagination will get you there. So, for example, a graduation, you might use a black colorway to kind of symbolize the mortar board. Okay. White or lighter colors might memorialize a wedding or perhaps the birth of a child. You might use a blue or a pink, a gender sort of related color. So, again, it lends itself to really using your creative mind to come up with those colors. So, you would simply make a chart with the times that you want to memorialize and then put the colors down. Now, one other variation on the way to do this, I think, is a lot of times when we have minis, we don't necessarily have, 6 of one color. So if we're doing a temperature blanket or something like that, that could be difficult. But what you can do is you can absolutely put your colors, group them in color families. So lots of pinks, greens, blues. You're going to have variegateds and speckles and all those colors. So group those together. And then that gives you a little more margin, a little more leeway when you're choosing your colors for those sorts of projects. So you can create for yourself your very own annual project. That's a fun thing to do. And to make it more fun, you might elect to kind of partner up with a friend or maybe your whole stitching group and make it your own annual project. You could have so much fun with this. You could do mini skein swaps. You could just do all sorts of fun things. The other thing that you can do for a mini skein swap is to do a random swap. So if you get together with your stitching friends, get yourself a big bag or a basket, put the hanks in there, and everybody pull them out instead of knowing what colors they're grabbing. And I love that idea. It adds that element of unpredictability and fun to it. So definitely something to consider. Okay, so what I've given you in your PDF is the beginnings of a little chart here. You can print this out, absolutely. You've got color families here. You can make notes what that denotes and then make your plans on there. All right, back to the Franken projects. We talked about those a little bit, but I want to revisit them for just a minute because along the lines of that creativity, I want to talk about another idea that harkens back to something I mentioned a moment ago. A Franken project is fun. A Scrappy project is fun, but you can up that unpredictability factor, which makes it more of an adventure, by putting all of the colors in a bag yourself and choosing them at random. If you hate a color, you don't have to use it, but it kind of relieves you of the responsibility of making choices, and it's fun. And again, you could get together with your stitching community and do all of that together, which would be kind of cool, I think. So Pinterest and Ravelry, I mentioned, are great resources for mini skein projects. On the last page of your PDF, projects that interest me, you have a chance to kind of make some notes, jot down what you love. That's one way to do it. So I'm going to show you, this is a cowl that used all mini hanks. Super nice. I'll be sure that the pattern is down below for you. And this is a shawl. Again, all these mini skeins. So you get to arrange the colors in the way that makes sense to you. And then, of course, we've got some scrappy socks here that are super fun. Like, you might think that was a hank that somebody put together that was just kind of a variegated hank, but it's not. It's all mini skeins. So very, very, very fun to do. Oops, hit my mic. You might have heard a little pop there. So this week it's a little shorter podcast because I'm actually off traveling for the holiday, but I wanted to make sure that I was here. I'm going to show you some yarn that we have in the shop really, really quickly. It's brand new in the shop this week. And incidentally, we have a whole array of our new Browning minis. Look at these colors. These are our Browning minis. They are, and I don't want to say it wrong, 19.5 micron superwash merino and 25% nylon, 92 yards, 3-ply fingering, and they are so incredibly soft. And the array of colors is really, really beautiful. You can find those on the website, and some of which will be down below in the show notes. And then our Twain Watercolor Wednesday yarn, really delicate and beautiful, would pair nicely with some minis. Skeins Ridge is new in the shop this week, a vibrant colorway. And one of my favorites, and there's a very small quantity of this, is Coal Miner's Daughter. And you can see the silver sparkles on that. If you're part of our Yarn to Use group on Facebook, you've seen a project recently using Coal Miner's Daughter, and it is a beauty. Check out those sparkles. If you haven't already done so, I'd invite you to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and investigate joining our Yarn to Use group on Facebook. It's a wonderful, politics-free, drama-free group. There's no backbiting or any of that. It's just a group of wonderful people who love to knit and crochet together. And I really hope you'll consider joining us there. My name's Michelle, and I'm with Olive and 2U Studios. Thank you so much for being with me this Saturday. Next Saturday, I'll be back, 9:30 in the morning. I'll be live next Saturday again with a brand new podcast, brand new information, and brand new fun. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.